here we are at Investec. There's a group of fantastic women here. Events such as these are important because, first of all, they create a safe space for women in business to discuss issues that only pertain to them without actually having to consider the presence of men in the room. So just the creation of a space where women can speak their minds freely, I think, is important.
I think the hot topic on the women agenda is basically women in leadership and in control when it comes to entrepreneurship. Women should be driving the economy, and historically, when you look at a family setup, every woman shapes what the family looks like. So I believe it can be transported to the enterprises and the economy in general. Some of the things I would like to share with the young women is basically the first thing is you need to get focused. And as you are getting focused on your purpose, as you find your purpose, you also need to learn from your mistakes, because nothing is going to be smooth sailing.
First of all, remember that you always have something to learn. There are always things that you don't know, and you have to remain open to listening and learning no matter who you become.
Also, in most cases, get a mentor that would actually help you in getting you around the process.
So keep yourself humble. And I think that ultimately is the best foundation for success.
Hello everybody, and welcome to our first Rising Star Female Forum of 2021, looking at the journey of women. As you can see from the slide, and many of you out there will know, I'm Laura Barker. I'm the MD of Blackwell Productions and the founders of both the Rising Star and the Grad Star programs. So it is an honor to welcome you all here today. Again, thank you. As I mentioned, we've chosen to schedule this subject in line with Freedom Day. Freedom Day, as you all know, is taking place on the 27th of April. And South Africa's travelled a tremendous journey since that day in 1994. And the journey that women have travelled is no exception. So today we've brought together some of the finest representatives of 3 different generations of talent to discuss their own personal journeys before and after COVID, but not exclusively related to the pandemic. I think we've all been to enough webinars about COVID. I want you all to enjoy the next 90 minutes to listen and just see the difference in the 3 generations of thought, the 3 different voices of experience. And we really hope that it'll give you an interesting perspective on the world we live in today. We have prepared some questions for each of the panel members and for the panel as a whole, but there will be a Q&A at the end. So please put your questions in the chat box. We will be recording them. We will ask them at the end. Keep the interaction as live as if we could do this event in person. So now I'll give you a little bit about each of the speakers. We're delighted and honoured to have them here today. Our first panelist from the top of HR corporate world is Monique Ngobo. She's the Vice President of HR Services and Talent Management at Massmart. She is extremely experienced. She has 19 years of experience in human resources. She began her career at the Woolworths Group as a recruitment specialist, and after spending many years and many successes at BAT, she joined Massmart in 2019 as Group Executive for Talent Management. Monique has a passion for people development and for mentoring, and she obtained her MCom in Industrial Psychology from the University of the Western Cape. She is blessed to have recently married Sipho, and they have a delightful 7-month-old son called Langaletu. And Monique is passionate about family time, listening to music, and she likes reading and watching lots of series and movies. which I have no idea how she has time to do with a 7-month-old at home. So she is our top of the chain when it comes to experience. Next up, we would like to welcome Andile. Now, Andile is the 2020 winner of our Professional Services Award at the Rising Star Awards. She wowed the judges, and she walked off with the top award in professional services. She is a senior manager of assurance at PwC, which she joined in 2013. Her experience includes leading large listed multinational audits within the mining sector, and she has a passion for inspiring and uplifting her teams through the sharing of her knowledge and experience gained throughout her career with them. She is a road runner, she sings for the Symphony Choir of Johannesburg, and she loves to travel. So welcome, Andile. And to represent the generation that is our future and for whom life is so very uncertain at the moment, the varsity and tertiary level students. We would like to welcome Lanisha Frank, a member of our GradStar Top 100 2020 cohort and currently studying for a master's degree in social development at the University of the Western Cape. Lanisha describes herself as young, curious, ambitious, passionate, and an excellent academic. His interest lies in the fields of social sciences, migration, and mobilities development. In 2019, she obtained her Bachelor's of Social Work cum laude with majors in psychology. She continued her studies and is interested in development and social policy concerning women. Lanisha is meticulous. She is an excellent public speaker, so we look forward to making that happen. And she displays not only her knowledge, but her boldness and confidence in everything she does and believes in. Her resilience, excellence, and resourcefulness give her the ability to rise above every challenging situation. In her own words, she is a catalyst for change. So anyway, with a bio like that, I'm sure our future is in very safe hands. And to all of you out there, if you're a current full-time student, please enter our GradStar Awards by downloading the GradStar app from your app stores. Or if you're a young professional and want to reach the top of Rising Star like Andile, you need to be between the ages of 28 and 40, and you can apply online now as well by heading to risingstar.awards.co.za. So please, take the opportunity to rise and shine. Everyone also would be really grateful if you remember to like, post, and share your thoughts on our social media pages. It's #RisingStarSA. And then now, enough of me. I'm just the intro. I would like to bring you the Rising Star Female Forum, the Journey of Women, and I would like to welcome our 3 exceptional speakers onto stage. Hi.
Hi, Laura. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Good afternoon,
Welcome.
everyone. Thank you.
Welcome. So, as I mentioned, the theme today is the Journey of Women. And I was hoping each of you could just, as I mentioned about 3 times, I think that we positioned this so there's 3 different generations of experience. I'd be really grateful if you could explain to the audience and to everyone listening just a little bit about your personal journey and what has brought you this far in your career. And I'm going to start with you, Monique.
Okay, thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm extremely honored to be with you today. I get super excited when I see women thrive in the organization and you know, have in my previous organization and is still doing it now, sponsoring young women and advocating for them to move up in the organization. I do believe that organizations should set themselves up and create environments that allow women to succeed and flourish. I believe in the term bring women in and up and not in and out, you know. So I had and still have amazing mentors, sponsors, and coaches in my career. And I would say dedication, hard work, and sacrifice has brought me to this point in my career. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. And to Generation 2, Andile.
I think Rose.
You're not quite generations in age, just generations in age.
I wanted to say that you make me feel old.
No, just levels of the corporate world.
I think Rose Moyo puts it quite
quite eloquently when she talks about the female structure within our homes. And it resonated with me a lot, because if I look at my family background, I was largely raised by a community of women. Just thinking of my great-grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family, and the strength she had in commanding the family. Like, you knew if Christmas was at her house, you better cancel all other plans because Christmas was at her house. And then you look at my mom, who's probably third generation, had me at a young age, but that in itself shaped her and gave her strength so that she could basically provide me with the opportunities that she basically didn't have in her path. And all my life, I've always been surrounded by resilient women. Where you don't give up, you go for your dreams, and you make sure that you provide and you are dependable. And those are some of the values that have shaped me into the young woman that I am. And I live by the Tibetan proverb that says, with the stout heart, a mouse can lift an elephant. And it fits so well with me because I'm like this small, but I think I can lift a whole mountain. and that's just a little bit about myself.
Amazing. Thank you and welcome. And over to you, Lanisha, representing the entire population of varsity students.
Good afternoon, everybody. So what brought me to this journey is, coming from a very small community in the Cape Flats, namely Elsie's River. And so this community is, I know it's popular for its levels of gangsterism, substance abuse, and all these other socio-economic issues. And, also being raised by a single parent has also been one of the push factors that has actually, I would say, rather pressured me into becoming the person who I am and who I'm still becoming. And knowing that where I come from is not where I want to be has been one of the factors that has really encouraged me to really obtain and attain certain things in life, that has always motivated me to excel academically, even though at times it seemed almost impossible, even though at times it seemed as if it was not going to become a reality. But today it is a reality, and that is what has motivated me in becoming Lanisha.
Well, welcome, Lanisha, and thank you for joining us today. I think those three brief introductions showed us how aspirational and inspirational these three ladies we have with us here today are. And to move on to a bit more about the theme of what we're discussing today, and looking back to Freedom Day and looking back to the journey, women in women's position have only really been recognised in the past few decades. In this society, in many societies, but in this society, I think more prominently than some. Do you think we have made enough strides? Well, that's an easy question. Do you think the strides we have made are something we can honour and something that we can recognise? And do you think there's more we can do? And if so, what? And please answer from your personal experience, whether it's in the workplace, for those in the workplace, or perhaps in the varsity and in the learning institution and learning environment for Lanisha. I'll start the other way around, Lanisha.
Okay, so my response to that would be that I would say yes, there has been progression in the development and the upliftment of women. However, it hasn't been to a large effect though, but there has been progression. We are seeing more females and more young women and more women in leadership coming up, taking certain roles and responsibilities. However, that imbalance and equality is still there. And there's also some complexity to it, because you would find that it's mainly then women who has a level of perhaps a qualification that is able to take up a certain space. So this issue around women and around leadership and around the role they take is also so complex, because you are looking at, is it a group that has some form of education or obtained a certain skill or so forth in a profession or field or expertise, and who are those that aren't, in a specific field or are in the lower spectrum? And so I would say, yes, females there has been progression to the position and the stance women take. However, it is not where it should be. And there is still a lot of work that needs to be done to get women and to get also specifically young aspiring women out there.
Absolutely. Young aspiring women like yourself, Lanisha. You're the beacon of all of them today, is what I mean. Moving on, Andile, sitting as the rising star. Lots of experience in the workplace, but also not too far away from experience from the men in varsity like yourself.
No, not too. I'm not that old. But maybe to echo the conversation tone, it is quite an amazing statistic in my organization that 56% of the workforce is female. So kudos to the firm for getting that kind of statistic in. The second question is now to say, how are we then able to ensure that those 56% of women know their worth within the workplace? Because it's one thing to get them in, it is another to then say, are we actually opening up space for these women to take up various roles within the organizations to drive the winds of change? And I can honestly say from my experience within the mining industry, it has been quite refreshing over the last couple of years to see female CEOs, female FDs rise up to the rank on a predominantly male-dominated environment or industry. And that for me gives me hope to say, well, if this individual has been able to break those kinds of barriers, then it is up to me to ensure that I just break it wide open for the next generation to go in without fear and ensuring that they know what value lies within them to make those changes that we need. From a family background, we've already acknowledged that women play a significant role. Now it's to ensure that those roles that we play are now highlighted in the platforms that are needed in society.
100%, Andile. And it's amazing that we can actually see women progressing in these male-dominated industries and inspiring those around them. Moving on to you, Monique. You're in charge of Massmart, of the HR portfolio. What's your experience?
So to both Lanisha and Andile, I would say yes, absolutely. I agree that we should honor and we should recognize that there has been progress made. So progress, yes, but in my view, it's very slow. Because the higher we go up in organizations or in the leadership ladder, the less female representation we find. Only 13% of Fortune 500 companies in the world have females at the top. And that is too small. So we have lots of talented women in organizations, but women are not being advanced the way they should. And we need critical mass of women in organizations. So currently we have organizations and they have targets, they have scorecards in place, which is great. But what do we do when we get those women into the organizations? And so I believe we have to get the pipeline right. We have to put the right support in place. So one of my colleagues call it, we need to put scaffolding around women to make sure they're protected and they don't fall. And so we need to retain them and do everything that we can to retain them. We need to look at what they are doing amazingly well and not put them down on what they're not doing so well. So tap into their strengths. And something we have to do is inclusion. We need to change the behavior of internal employees and call it out if we have to, if it's not the behavior that we want towards women. We need to give women honest feedback so that they can get the right development. We can put them on the right projects so that we can identify the right support for them, And yes, like I said earlier on, we need to work with the pipeline and pull women up. Bring them in and up and not in and out. Give them a seat around the table. There's one thing, I sit in many senior meetings and we tend to make a lot of assumptions about women's lives. She's still young. She didn't have a child yet. She's not married yet. Or she's newly married. She just had a baby. And businesses need to stop making assumptions about women's lives and make decisions on their careers based on facts and actual conversations held with them. And so the individuals that's making these decisions on talent pipelines in organization, they must make an effort to identify the best women, sponsor them, and take them to the top. So if I can just bring it all together, I think we have a lot more to do, and we need to set women up for success. And as long as leadership and success is associated with traits of men, women will be treated differently. That is the unfortunate reality.
Absolutely. I mean, women, in my opinion, women are just, if not better leaders, but we lead in a different way and we lead with different qualities. And as long as the parameters are set by men for men, then we will only succeed by conforming to be a man, or by changing the rules and owning who we are and our strengths and qualities. But what you said, Monique, I'm going to come straight back to you, because you mentioned that women are not being advanced the way that they should. Not necessarily, but women need to be advanced the way they should. And maybe we should look at calling out bad behavior. And that brings us on to the whole concept of discrimination and women, gender discrimination and gender equality in the workplace. I know most people, there's this high statistic that most females have experienced some form of discrimination in the workplace. Do any of you want to contribute, if you've experienced it, how you've overcome it? If you can speak to the audience, the ladies in the audience who might be going through something similar right now. Hands up, who wants to go?
Okay, I'll go. So personally, no, I haven't experienced, to be very honest with you, any kind of discrimination in the workplace. But I had to guide someone in my previous organization on how to deal with her experience of being oppressed. And interestingly enough, this was oppression from one woman to another. And this is where this colleague of mine, she was pregnant with twins. And she had a difficult pregnancy, high-risk pregnancy. And after doctor's reports to her line manager saying, you need to slow down, you can't do these 12-hour working, 15-hour working days every day, her boss expected more of her and actually threatened her with an incapacity hearing. And you would think that a woman, a mother, she would understand that there's rest needed during pregnancy, and especially, with a high-risk pregnancy, and there wasn't. And sometimes, to your point, we think that it's only men that discriminate against us. It's only men who oppress us. And I think it's because it's easier for us to show up men versus ourselves and say, but the way you're treating me, this is not how I would want a female leader to behave, or this is not how I would like you as the sisterhood that we always talk about. This is not how the sisterhood supports, And so I obviously had to advise her in terms of what she can and what she can't do, but nothing came of it, as you can imagine, because she did her work. She was great at it. Expecting more of it of her wasn't realistic. But it was sad for me that it was a woman treating another woman like that. And I call it oppressing the person. Yeah. So that's my experience.
Absolutely. And not just a woman to a woman, but a mother to a future mother. I mean, surely if she's been through that situation herself, then we would hope for some further understanding. But Anele, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think what Monique put out is so spot on. Women tend to size each other up sometimes for no reason when there's enough room for everyone to shine. And I know, I don't know if it's sometimes because you're trying to impress a male leader, or how we are sometimes when there's a male leader in the dynamics, because you want to compete with each other, and I don't see a need for that. But the other form of discrimination that I guess I've been experiencing or have experienced is because you are confident, you have attitude. And because you articulate yourself, then, you think you are this. And it goes back to Monique's point about making assumptions about women. And if a fellow male counterpart had confidence, you would say, oh, he is an alpha male, let's celebrate him. But the minute you are not timid and you know what you want, then we are so quick to then just drag each other down for what is inherently, a God-given talent, to be able to speak with confidence, to articulate, to share your thoughts. I mean, these are some of the skills and qualities that we need to be teaching our girls, yet they are the same ones we are using to shut them up. And those are some of the challenges that I have seen. And I've tried by all means to ensure that, the women that come after me, or women, even I work for, my sister who's 18, doing matric, she knows she has a voice, that she's confident, and that she must just go out for what she wants. And it starts in the home front.
Learn by example. She's very lucky to have an example like you.
Thanks, Laura.
Lanisha.
Yes, so I would also say that, when as a graduate, and when you find yourself as an intern at certain corporates, at certain places, this also brings a new aspect to the whole oppression and, discrimination concept. When you are a graduate or you are a student, an intern, and you are doing your practicals at certain corporates or whatever organization you find yourself at, there's this level of power dynamics and the way employers or managers perceive you as a student or as an intern. And so it was there that I have learned that you have to have confidence, and you need to also be knowledgeable of what you do, because there's this level of disrespect and also oppression because you are a student. You will find yourself doing administrative work where you were supposed to do something else, but just because you are a student and you are perceived as someone who, oh, well, she's a student, the student concept, she's a student, let her do that, let her do that. But I've always taught my students and mentees this thing, that when you find yourself at your practical organizations, you need to be confident, you need to be bold, you need to also show that you have a level of knowledge, skills, and expertise which you bring to the organization. Because I was even in that position where I was oppressed, by power and by management and by certain structures, because I was the student. But the student knew what her purpose and what her mandate was at the organization, and therefore she employed that roles. But yet that oppression and that level of power, it was like a top-down approach, was still there. So even in, with the university students who find themselves at practical placements at organizations who practice certain fields, they also need to be cognizant and also be empowered in the form of, placement, oppression, placement, discrimination. What do you do when you find yourself being discriminated or being oppressed within the organization where you are placed at?
That's very important, but I think a lot of it comes down to education, access to education, access to resources. I mean, many students entering a workplace don't have any idea of what to expect from a workplace. So as much as they can draw the boundaries and understand oppression, and it's very difficult for them to enter a new space and know how to handle it perfectly. And what you said about confidence and knowledge, they go hand in hand. I've seen that in the chat. Lots of people are commenting on the fact that confidence and knowledge go hand in hand. But also be careful of drawing the line of confidence without knowledge, because that comes across very differently. So that was really interesting. Thank you for that, ladies. And we've referred a little bit to the home environment, not too much, but I'm just going to bring the attention back now to the home environment. There has been a lot of talk and a lot of discussions about COVID. This isn't a COVID webinar. I don't want it to be a COVID webinar, but I think we have to address it at some point. We can't just pretend it's not there. And there's been, for looking at gender equality, and where working from home strategies have more often than not always, but more often than not, thrown the burden of home care or childcare or cleaning or any of those female designated roles onto the female, but as well as having the female conduct her full-time job as well. Has this been your experience? Have you struggled with this? And do you think it have any long-lasting effects on female progression in the workplace? What learnings can we take from it?
So Laura, I can tell you for sure, I do not miss the dishes. I do. I mean, and the thing is, because you're not going anywhere, then it's okay to take 5 glasses out the cupboard because you're not. Why couldn't you just rinse the one? So, right? And what I also don't miss is that the hours were longer, definitely longer during lockdown. It was incredibly intense, within my environment where I'm providing assurance services, the uncertainties within the clients, the additional work that I had to do really meant that I was behind the screen or behind a camera for longer than I would have otherwise have been had it not been for lockdown. Because then I could have driven to the client, had a bit of a coffee, but you're not doing that. You're just sitting. And then what it means then is that at the end of the week, the cleaning is waiting for you on Saturday because that's the only activity that you can actually do and get some exercise. But to do that without assistance was something that I felt was not right. Like I knew it was not right because I'm working equal hours, even longer than my partner. But then come Saturday, where now we need to just have a home that is, it can breathe, it can feng shui. I'm the one left with, the spring cleaning, and he goes hiking. And right? And funny enough, when I was telling him this, yesterday, he tried to deny it. And I was like, don't deny it. This is what because now that I can talk about it and call it out, if you don't address those aspects or those things that made you feel a certain way during lockdown, then they will never change. What I do appreciate about the lockdown is within our community and within audit, we actually started realizing that more families were being more open with their leaders in terms of what is happening in the home front. When can I have a call? I mean, we would have moms who were taking client meetings at 8 p.m. in their car because the 2-year-old was still awake, and how you manage that. I mean, we started being empathetic towards working moms who, while you're in a video conference like this, you can hear the baby chat, part of the conversation. And that showed you that life was in progress. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. But then from a leadership perspective, you then think to yourself, hold on, but this person does this all the time. It was just amplified during lockdown. And what are we then doing about that as an organization, those uncompensated hours that the women are working, that needs to then come to the forefront?
I think that's an incredibly valuable observation that made that. I honestly, it's very obvious, but I've actually never heard it before. That just it brought what's the existence of gender-based to the forefront, but it's still going on. It's still going on behind the scenes, but now we've just decided not to talk about it anymore because it's not lockdown anymore. Monique, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I see Iftisham saying that it's been quite an adjustment to balance the two, and I agree with him more. But before we go there, COVID was a difficult time, a terrible time for most people. A lot of people lost loved ones, including myself, and I hope that those on the call who've experienced that is getting the support that they need to get through this difficult time. So, because that is something that we even did differently, right? So a loved one passed away, or a loved one found themselves with COVID, was in hospital, and guess what? We had to continue with work. So it's almost like that empathetic side of organizations. It's not that it was lost, but it was almost like we were just supposed to move on and get on with things. An amazing thing that happened in my organization is that we established or decided on certain areas where people need to be upskilled in. And whether it is balancing a work life or integrating it differently, or whether it was leading virtually, or whether it was how do you connect with people over Zoom, and putting some ground rules in place. So there were certain learning journeys that we put in place as an organization to really support our associates. So my experience, my baby, Langalecho, was born during the toughest lockdown times. And when I returned in January, the good thing that came with COVID was the fact that I didn't have to leave my baby at home and go to work and experience that sadness of having to suffer from separation anxiety and then only seeing him when I returned from work. However, this is a bittersweet moment for me, because the bitter side was, now I'm at home, I see my baby, but I have to rush to him when he cries, because Nanny is not always there when he's crying. And I feel the need as a mother to run to him when he's crying and he needs some kind of attention. On the other side, my husband is also working from home. So I'm back to back in Zoom meetings. And the 30 minutes I have to just take, to breathe, to reflect, I have to now also see to my husband and make sure he eats. Right? Because that's what we do as wives. We make sure our families are fed. So that was for me, or that is still, because I'm still working from home. That is a difficult one for me to balance. But sometimes I leave him to starve, and he would come downstairs and say, "Yo, I'm starving." And then I see him go to the kitchen.
Into the fridge.
So yes, that's been my experience. But I check in with a lot of my colleagues often on how they're coping with older kids. I have a baby, but kids where they need to help with homework specifically, and it's tough. So if you look at remote working, it has really exacerbated previous gender imbalances at home. I believe that, which in turn has had ramifications in the workplace. So mothers are more likely to do most of the household work, they're cleaning, they sort out the schoolwork, they look at the children and making sure they're taken care of. And that is obviously making them feel that they always need to be turned on, which can in turn have an impact on their job performance. Which leads to stress and burnout and job insecurity. So I read an article recently that says that there is 1 out of 4 women who's actually considering downshifting their careers or leaving the workforce altogether because of the strains that working remotely during the pandemic has put on them. And that is so unfair that women have to choose between a career and family. So what are organizations doing? Do we understand the challenges faced by mothers? When Langaletu cries in the background, my boss says, "Oh my gosh, Langaletu is on payroll today." And that's just how we've been trying to deal with things, because it's important that we shed light on what women, to Andile's point, we need to shed light on what women are going through. And COVID has done that for us. Speaking about career advancement, yes, I believe there is an impact because of women's added domestic burdens, right? Women are currently faced with more headwinds than men in the workplace. For instance, because of demands from children and noise at home, they have to maybe mute themselves on video calls. And that might look to their peers that they are less visible, they're not interested, they're not available, they're not present. And because of assumptions about they're too burdened at home to consider a new assignment or promotion, they can be blocked in their career advancement. So we're going to have to look out for that and put support in place for women during this time as well, to make sure that they remain visible and top of mind.
You made some amazing points there. I'm going right back to the beginning. Absolutely, everybody's had to learn a whole new set of skills, and it's amazing to see organizations supporting that and assisting with learning how to do Zoom calls and assisting with this, leading from a distance, leading virtually. Very, very difficult skills, and skills we've never experienced before. So fabulous to see the support being put in place for that. Moving on to the joy you got to spend an entire year with your newborn. That's fabulous. It's not the first time I've heard it either. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and my daughter thinks COVID is a good thing. I said, Lola, why is COVID a good thing? She's like, because mommy can have it. Simple. I was like, oh, okay. But that's her view. She thinks of wearing a mask and getting mummy to come home, she thinks that's a good deal. But again, that puts extra pressure on me because now I feel more worried about going back to work and leaving her because of her joy. Anyway, that's my problem. But also, and I think what we have learned through COVID, though, is maybe to ask for help more and reach out to our support more. That whole concept of it takes a village almost had been diminished tremendously. And now you see grandparents helping, and you see grandparents with helping the children with the homework. My mother's in England, and I told her that she needs to get involved in the project too, and she now does Zoom homework with my daughter. So I think reaching out and asking for help is something that COVID has helped us to do, mainly because we were given no choice. But over to you, Lanisha, what's been your experience?
So my experience has been somewhat different because I am a student. But, apart from being a student, but also being a peer counselor and a counselor, I have seen the effects of the pandemic in certain households and the effect that it had on women, that it was, to my surprise, was that the fact that COVID has really also exposed the level of gender-based violence and the degree to gender-based violence, where we had women centers and organizations that were screaming for help because they had an influx of women that were running away from their homes with the children because of the level of domestic violence that takes place within the household. And so, to my surprise, and there were even females that were too afraid to come out and to actually raise their voices and to speak out. This is what I've been experiencing. This is what is going on within my environment. And then also children. The effects that it had on children was so disheartening, where you saw that there is food insecurity within households. And now because of the food insecurity and, this whole gender concept of men that has the notion that the man is the breadwinner and, he needs to work. And so, yes, the pandemic, there's unemployment, there's no work, and that stress is filtered down to the abuse. And now the children are also involved in this whole cycle. And so that was really disheartening to see, and to see that there are resources and there is help, but who is able to access that help and who is actually socialized and knowledgeable of what the processes and procedures are for actually going out to seek that necessary help. And for me, that was just really, gender-based violence is a pandemic on its own and in all forms of abuse. So that to me was really, it was an emotional burden as a counselor. And even seeing that for students, within academia, though, to take it to academics, that students from low income communities who had struggles of, I don't have internet connection, I don't have data, I don't have the necessary laptops and all this resources to actually do the necessary things that is expected of me. There are many of the students that were actually on these work study programs that the university offered, and so it became almost so impossible. It seemed so impossible for you to just breathe and to just be a living person. But yes, these are all the issues which I've really experienced through practice and my position in counseling. That COVID has also, just revealed. So yeah.
I think that's a very valid point and actually interesting point, is that COVID has almost forced the spotlight on many issues that we just, I don't know if we weren't aware, they weren't presented to us, and we didn't necessarily deal with on a day-to-day basis. And COVID has forced these issues, so this gender-based violence, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's the day-to-day decision of do I buy data or electricity. It's made us more aware as a community, and perhaps bringing it to the spotlight and allowing us to have these discussions is what can move the whole agenda forwards. So thank you for that, Lanisha. I want to move on. We've covered this a little bit in our discussions, but I want to move on to the concept of imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome, as we know, can apply to anybody at all, but it is something that affects women more than it affects men, whether it's due to their confidence or whether it's due to not being allowed to have their confidence or judged by having that confidence, as Adile mentioned earlier. Have any of you got any specific examples of when you've experienced imposter syndrome, how you came through it, how you overcome it, and how you got to where you are today? Or even what you think of imposter syndrome? Lanisha.
Yes. So when I saw that concept, I was like, okay, what is this? But then I read what it was all about because I wasn't sure. But self-doubt, definitely. I think to make it more realistic and to bring it more home, I've started this new role. And when I started this new role, I wasn't quite familiar with the things that came with this role because I'm in this new role and I'm excited, but yet there are so many challenges. And so to an extent where I felt that, Lanisha, you can't do this. Like, what made you think that you can actually do this? You aren't doing your work. And, that level of self-doubt came in and I felt like I was incompetent because I wasn't able to exude the task that needed to be executed, not because I don't have the skill, but just because I'm new, I'm learning all these things. I need to build up experience. It's like driving a car for the first time, you need a lot of practice. So that level of self-doubt came in, but I needed to position myself, reflect, tell myself, all right, girl. So you are the first time that you are executing this task. It's going to be challenging, but you need to focus. You can do this. I needed to do affirmation on myself. You are excellent. You can do this. You are the best. I needed to affirm and to kind of do positive reinforcement to myself because I was going to be the cause of myself, doubting and not achieving what I was about to achieve, because of this self-doubt. But the moment I saw that this doubt actually is impacting my functionality within this role, I just put a stop to it and just reaffirmed these positive things about myself. And I changed my mindset and the way I saw myself. And the moment I did that, that was the breaking point. I'm enjoying my role. I'm enjoying my job. I'm enjoying the functions, but I'm also enjoying the challenges that comes with it because I needed to just address that little thing, which was, the self-doubt. And I had to just reaffirm myself that, yes, there will be things which you wouldn't understand or which you won't understand, but practice, practice, practice.
Amazing advice. Amazing. Over to you, Andile. You look like you had something to say.
Yeah, I think Lanisha is spot on when it comes to the feeling that one gets whenever you start a new role, the uncertainty that provides. If I think of my organization and the structure of most engagements or projects, it's almost like a pyramid structure, right? So you would have, of course, the partner at the top, and then you'll, go down the pyramid in terms of progression or experience. And I've always sort of played a supportive role to maybe the person who's slightly above me, but just below the partner. And I have tremendous respect for that role on its own because it's also adding to the value we provide at the end of the day in terms of, the whole team pulling towards one shared vision. But the problem is staying in that middle role for a long time to a point where you start doubting whether you would ever get the opportunity to move out or also be the one that leads at some point. And I found that when I was then presented with the opportunity to lead my first engagement, the back of my mind, I was like, I'm sure they're already thinking I'm going to fail. So So if anything, it was the fear that basically made me put in all the hours that I had, because failure was not an option. It was not. And I was willing to sacrifice sleep for what I needed to do. And the problem is that I knew what it would take, or so I thought, to get over the fear, to get to where I needed to, and the learning process that comes with that change. And yes, there was a lot of doubt, especially when things didn't go well. And then you immediately default to say, oh, maybe I'm not experienced enough, or maybe, I'm not getting support enough, and that's part of the journey, I suppose. But the way I saw it, which I actually made my friends laugh the other day, is the only thing that kept me forward was, when you ever drive to some of these car washes or drive through and you see these blow up dolls, if you hit that doll, it comes back up. And if you hit it, it comes back up. That's exactly what I thought of myself. It's like, yeah, they're going to hit me, but I'm going to come right back up again with a lot of momentum, because I'm not going to stay down. Like, there is no option for me to stay down. And because I know where I'm going. And I surrounded myself with the right people as well. It was hard during COVID, but I made sure I had people on speed dial if I just needed to vent, or I just needed a different perspective to a decision that I need to make. Because by me going into that new role, I also open up opportunities for someone else to move into mine, so that you don't block the journey of progress for anyone. And I guess that's what I would like to share today, with our guests on the line.
Lift others up as you progress as well.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, you two are the best representatives of Rising Star and Grad Star that I've ever come across. So I think you're fabulous. And
amazing.
But Monique, perhaps from your perspective personally, but maybe also from your perspective as a HR leader in the workplace, and how you would address that. Do you see it? Do you recognize it? And what do you do about it?
Yes, I see it all the time. It happens all the time, and I think it's human. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It is what you do with that information that is for me important. So as long as you are aware of, oh gosh, I'm doubting myself now, what do you do about that? Because I don't believe that you can overcome the feeling, but you can take action despite the feeling. So these thoughts are basically habits and patterns that we've created over the years. And it started with how we were raised. It started with how boys are raised versus how girls are raised. Boys are raised to be competitive, go out there, do what you need to do. You don't cry, you pick yourself up and you get going. Girls are raised differently. We're raised to be nurturing, kind, sweet, and gentle. And when we fall, everyone runs to us, right? Because we're not supposed to have any scars on our bodies. And so this is a habit that has been created over many, many years. Boys, they get a challenge, they're competitive, they fall and they get back up. And that you can see visibly in the workplace as well. So how I do it, I choose to stand in my power and my ability, and I take action when I have to. So I decided to outsmart my environment by looking at the things I do well and not focusing and get stuck on the things I didn't do so well, because that is what causes self-doubt. So I reaffirm myself by telling myself, I am amazing. Well done. You are awesome at what you've done, because men do that, right? They tell themselves, yo, I was freaking amazing in that presentation. And we as women, we don't do that, because why? We're scared of what other women might think about us. Oh, she's conceited. Oh, she thinks she's all that. To Andile's point earlier on. So we're so scared to affirm ourselves and change that pattern that we go into our corner and we say, oh, I did pretty okay today. And we say it to ourselves in a little corner. So I want us to kill that feeling of being an imposter. You're not an imposter. Get rid of that. Don't listen to those feelings. Take action and move forward. And I want to say to everyone on the line, don't be scared to fail. I live by, take those risks. So put your hand up for the difficult projects. Put yourself up for the projects where you will be noticed. You're not going to be noticed for the easy stuff. Let's be honest. And guess what? The guys put their hands up first. Before we can put our hands up for those projects, the men have already done that. And then you have to motivate why you need to be on a difficult project. So don't be scared to fail. I live by, it's not how many times we fall in life, but how many times we get back up a better person. So that is how I deal with those days when I feel there's a little bit of doubt. And like I say, it's normal for every human being to feel that way.
Exactly like the analogy Andile gave us of the blow-up doll getting up and down and up and down. I also think that perhaps women are more hard on ourselves in the presentation. So we've done this amazing presentation, and the man might go and say, I did amazing, I blew their minds. We might say, I stuttered at that point, and I missed that, I should have done that better. How do you think we can overcome that?
So, you know, something I've picked up is that you ask a female to do a presentation by tomorrow, and she'll tell you tomorrow, you know what? I didn't have enough time. And then I would be like, but show me what you've done. And you would see the amazing stuff that they've come up with, but they're so scared to share it. Where a man is very different. You know, people that report to me who are males, they will immediately show me, Monique, this is my thinking, this is my skeleton, and please give me your input. Us as women, we almost want to have the perfect product. And as long as we want the perfect product, you are delaying and other people are moving ahead of you. You will always have to catch up if you want to be Miss Perfect all the time. Share your views and share what you have, get others' input and move. And that's really my advice, just thinking about it out loud.
That's incredible advice. I think perhaps we spend more time analysing risk as well, which is why we aren't necessarily the first ones to put our hand up for that difficult project, because we're working out how we're going to do it, whereas the men are just like, no, I'll do it. But that thought process and the fact that we involve that thought process should be one of our strong points, and we should use it as it's advantageous to women that we do give it this consideration, and we should own it and be proud of it.
Okay.
So moving on, there was a long question, an amazing question, and thank you all for your input. But moving on, and I see there's a point in the chat about this. Leander refers to when we go right back to when Monique mentioned about scaffolding around women and building the scaffolding to make sure that they don't fall. Leander wants to point out that men have a big part to play in that scaffolding. And certainly in the male-dominated industry, you can't just look to females because there aren't that many. So how important do you think it is to include men in these conversations? And what is the best way to do it? Have you got an experience in how you've approached men, how you've brought them in, and how do you think is the best way to bring the best out of both worlds, I guess? Anyone want to go? I'm going to go to you, Monique, because you're the experienced one.
You guys hear some knocking? Please forgive me. We moved into a new house and they're just fixing something. So to Luyanda's point, I absolutely agree with her. It's extremely relevant for men to be part of the conversation because we need men to drive it and to change the system. So it's important that we create platforms or spaces for men and women to have courageous conversation and allow for learning. We've developed a program called Women in Leadership, and my team did a proposal to me to say it's only for women. And I said, no, I actually want you, I'm fine with the program that you've developed, but I want you to do a pre-program for me, looking at where we can bring men into the conversation. And they came up with a presentation and they called it Personal Mastery. And we have a program now where men and women are part of this Personal Mastery program. And the reason I wanted that is, ladies, let's be honest, we can learn a hell of a lot from men, right? They're not scared of who they are. They are very authentic. They're not apologetic. They're confident. They say to themselves, I'm awesome. I've done an amazing job today, and they don't feel bad about it. I said already to you guys, they are okay with not bringing the 100% tomorrow. They're okay with the 80%, right? So they are confident in themselves with that. And they're okay not to be liked. But what I love about men, they can be professional. They don't have to like each other, but they can be professional and get the job done in an amazing environment still. And they can put their differences aside and move forward because they're working towards the same vision. They can give each other tough feedback and still have a drink afterwards. I listened to the Pepsi CEO. I listened to one of her talks the other day, and she speaks about the toilet situation. A presentation was just done, and two men goes into the toilet, and the one says to the other one, "Wow, what a crappy presentation you just did. What were you thinking?" And the guy looked at him and said, "Oh, really?" And they leave the bathroom and they go for a drink. And the same thing happens in the ladies' bathroom. And the lady gives the feedback to the other one to say, "Wow, what a crappy presentation. What were you thinking?" And guess what? They're enemies today. They can't work together. They can't sit around the same table. And that is termed as, sorry, ladies on the chat, that is seen as bitchy. And just because someone was confident enough to give you feedback to help you, you weren't able to take that. Men trust each other. They accept each other. They mentor and sponsor each other. They believe they deserve that next promotion and they're going to do everything in their power to get that promotion. And they negotiate the hell out of salaries and benefits. And we are so scared to say, this is the job I want. This is the salary I want. This is the benefit that I want. I have a child, so I need flexible work. Or listen, I won't be able to start at 8, but I can start at 9. So you're not sharing your challenges up front because you're so scared you're not going to get the job. And that is a lot of stuff we can learn from men. And that is why in my life, 90% of my mentors, sponsors, and coaches have been men, because I believe I can learn so much from them.
Absolutely. And unless we bring men into the conversation, then we can't effect lasting change. We can't do it by ourselves. I don't know, Andila, do you have any thoughts on what you're
I do.
I'm sure you do.
Sure. Monique painted such a beautiful picture, and I can actually take, those learnings with me going forward, because what you've painted is exactly what I've seen and experienced. So last year, during the Women's Month, we were still sort of in lockdown. And one of the male leaders within the firm had asked me if I can set up a Women's Month conversation with him, together with a handful of other female managers within the organization, different divisions and departments, across the spectrum. And he would like to have a conversation with us, and it's open, and we can ask him anything we wanted. And for me, that was like, tick, yes, thank you, because that is what you need, right? Let's open the platform for men to bring up the conversation. But what was really interesting were two things. The first thing I asked him was, do I need to play golf? Because I suck at putt. Not good. Do I need to cycle? Mountain bike? Not very good. And these are all the items that we have been conditioned to think you need to do to network and progress or bring in work. And I just wanted an honest opinion. Do I need to? I mean, I'm very sporty, but I really don't want to do golf. I want to do something else. And he shared with me an honest response, which I will always, take away with me. And this is the learning from men that Monique is talking about. And he said, look, Andile, I'm not the best mountain biker, so you won't find me there. I suck at golf too, so you won't find me there. I actually like spending time with my family. And what I found works for me in terms of networking and clients is having breakfast with the client, because breakfast is scheduled, it is structured, and after breakfast your day starts. Lunch can sometimes drag on because then you want to have drinks, and dinner doesn't work for me because I actually want to be with my family. And to hear that kind of perspective as a young professional, within the organization was quite refreshing, because it gave me a different outlook on how I package my value proposition, to clients, that it doesn't have to be the typical one size fits all of, a golfer. The second thing that he shared with us was he actually admitted his bias in terms of what he perceived as equal opportunities between male and female within his own team. And he said, I pride myself in giving both men and women equal opportunities on any project that comes around. But someone actually came to him and told him that, have you ever considered that John or Jabu, when they get home, they don't have to do household chores, which means they can rest or they can put in an additional 5-6 hours on that project, versus Monique and Lanisha, who actually have to get home, put in the same hours as John and Jabu, but still need to put in extra hours to take care of the family, the household, etc., etc. So perhaps your view of what equal opportunity is needs to be adjusted to cater for the fact that the environments are not the same. In as much as you want to, because the problem is, if he doesn't know that, he can't then implement this kind of discussion where he can sit in a room with me and ask me, what works for you? How can I make sure that you are at your best? And that's why we need them in the room.
That's incredible. The note I actually made, which I have written down in front of me, it says, make it work for you. And that's just how you finished. So I love the way this discussion's going, and I can see by the chat that people are enjoying it too. Lanisha, over to you.
Yeah, so as a very young person, I think I cannot add, but what I take from that is that, and what I've also seen in practice is that, that most of the time there is so much focus on women, and which is good. It should be, it's very good. But then we tend to leave out men or males, and yet there is so much to learn from them. And I think this whole issue around gender and around the concepts of what a male is and what a female is has also kind of limited the way we perceive things, and has also limited our engagement with certain things in life and in the whole life of education, because we are so focused on the woman this and the male that, we have separated the two. Yet there is so much to learn from this male, and there's so much to learn from this female, and it comes down to this whole debate about gender and what our understanding is around the role of a woman, a role of a male. And therefore in scholar and in academics, I'm always in this debate around gender issues, how, the categories of male and female has been socially created, how I've been socialized in my understanding of what a girl is or what a female is. Girls wear pink and they only play with girls. Boys do that and they only do that. Girls don't do, boys don't cry and all that type of stuff. So it filters down to this whole understanding of gender, our understanding about gender, the biology around gender. So it really is so complex, and it has really limited us in engaging around the things men also bring to the play. Because I'm telling you, I have seen men, or rather male academics, that are stunning. They are stunning. I'm like, wow, but because we have these females or this male, these categories, and we categorize categorize certain things. It has really created this limit in how we experience and we learn certain skills. And so I've really taken away from what Monique has said and Andila said, because it is so profound. You know, just yesterday, I was sitting in a consultation and I was mediating in the situation, and I was the female voice, but I was done speaking. And a male, he came and he concluded this mediation. But to my surprisement, right, he said, well, I spoke for 10 minutes, but what I spoke was actual, it was factual. But he said one thing, and just that one thing he said, like, that was the cherry on the cake. Like, that was all that we needed to mediate that situation, you know? And so we should really appreciate also and create the space for men also, but also learn from them. But it also boils down to this whole socialization of women are this, men are that. No, women perform that, men perform that. You know, so really thank you so much for bringing such enlightenment to my understanding also pertaining, you know, the characteristics and the good qualities men also bring.
Absolutely, and I think it's incredible that we've seen a couple of men in the audience today. This event was marketed not exclusively, but mainly to women, to our female networks, and to the females that we've worked with. And yet here, I see Toba Masuku's here. There's a couple of other boys I heard there. And to actually say this is a female forum, and I'm going to attend. I'm not just going to attend. I'm going to comment. That's amazing, Monique.
And then that is why we need the men in the room, because, I mean, three things. Men need to sponsor women more and their careers more. So men need to talk about the great work that women are doing and really the excellent results that they are producing, so that the organizations can overtly see women's value, right? That's number one for me. Number two, how many times have we been told to share our view? And when we do share our view, we are termed a know-it-all. Or when we speak passionately about something, we're called emotional. Now, exactly. So it's comments like these that make women become less confident, we speak less, and we don't contribute to important conversations, right? So we need men to ensure that women's voices are heard in meetings. And we need men to build on women's ideas and not like with Lanisha. That person that came in and put a cherry on top. It would have been amazing if he built, and maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It would be amazing if he built on what Lanisha said and add his 2 cents. And so that it doesn't look like one person's comment is now not important anymore. So how do we build on women's ideas to the men in the room? And lastly, for me, is understanding women's struggles and for the men to help advocate and help us with those struggles and speak up against the injustices that women experience in the workplace. And that's what I believe we need the men in the room for. And thank you for joining.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's just a couple of questions left, but they're kind of closing questions. So I'd like to just pick up a question that I saw in the chat. Going back to when we were discussing lockdown, I think, but it's not just related to lockdown. Mercedes would like to bring up the issue of mental health and are there any practical solutions to support those that are suffering from mental health in the workplace? And how do we even recognize it? And once we recognize it, where do we take it from there? There was another comment in the chat about how COVID has just unveiled the mask that we held all the time. What do we do about that? I'm going to go to you, Monique.
So let me just, I am off mute. So for me, and thank you, Mercedes, I actually made a comment because I wanted us to go back to that point. So I made a note of your comment. So I do believe that, with COVID, yes, mental issues have been out there and people are now more open about speaking about it. And that's why in our workplace, what we really put a huge focus on is health is wealth, right? So we have given people tips on how to, when they are at home, and more so the people who are alone, people who live on their own, who were in lockdown for so long, they didn't have any human contact. At least some of us had our partner or a mother or a father or someone in the house, and specifically people who had no one. We tried to speak to them and connect with them. So we had leaders checking in, or co-workers checking in on them. And we really emphasized the whole practice of, what do you do to be a happy individual? What makes you happy? And putting your energy into that. So when you have a break, go for your walk. Or when you have a break, go stand outside. When you have a break, do this. Lay on the floor, scream, sing, put music on. Do what makes you happy for those few moments, just to get those hormones and the right brain cells to talk to each other. Because we have seen a lot of really, really sad people, and people that are depressed up until today and who can't get out of it. Something that we really, really also want people to tap into is their employee assistance programs, right? So it is something that's available. It is something that is free, and use it. There should be no shame in a feeling that you have. There should be no shame in feeling sad and feeling depressed and needing someone to help you through that dip in your life. So there are support, there is support out there, and I want you guys to tap into that and not feel ashamed by using that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I think the mental health comment is so real. It's like gender, it's like any other societal issue that has definitely come to the forefront globally. So not just South Africa. And within an auditing environment where we are used to sitting in a team, when you sit in a team, there's energy, and you can feed off of energy, and you make people laugh even when you think, today all hell's going to break loose. But that makes a difference. And we took all of that away, and it was virtual. And I saw my team struggle. Young associates, in their 20s, 24, 25 age group. And as soon as the restrictions were lifted and we were able to come together after mutual agreement, it made such an impact in their lives, because now they can see people. We need people. I mean, I think that's the one thing we realize, that, and as much as sometimes you can think you're an island, COVID showed us that you cannot live alone. You need uplifting or upliftment. You need people. And it started making an improvement just in their lives, in their day-to-day. They could laugh. We could eat together, break bread, of course, with COVID protocols in place. But for me personally, what I've found as a win for me is my sporting activities as a great tool to release stress, to release tension. And whenever I found myself like I can't think, it's just too much, I would go for a run. We were lucky enough in our complex where they allowed us the bottom unit. So I was literally running in a space so small, just so that I could release any tension that I had. And then I started buying my own dumbbells and gym equipment. I was on the online strength training, anything to get off the chair, because I wasn't about the COVID spread after lockdown and, gaining weight. So I just had to make sure from a fitness perspective, I was solid. But what that did was it put discipline in terms of my calendar and my diary, so that I made time to take care of myself. I made time to do the things that make me happy or make me feel okay. And that is the one advice I could potentially give, over and above seeking professional help, is finding the things that made you when you were still growing up, when you were in high school. Just because you are working now doesn't mean you need to stop doing the things that made you laugh, that made you go out, take a walk. And we've tended to forget those things because, I've got so much work to do. There's a deadline, there's this. So we've actually neglected ourselves. And now it's just compounded itself into these mental health issues, and people don't know how to cope. And I once said to my coachee, and I said to her, what did you used to do in university? Did you play netball? Like, what did you used to do? And because I reminded her of that, I was like, then why aren't you doing it? Because that brought you joy, that released endorphins. So do it now. Nobody's stopping you. And that's what I'd like to encourage everyone to do. We grew up participating in activities with friends. You need to pick up those things that give you joy so that you can overcome whatever challenge is with around you, but also know which are the right people to speak to so you can also get the necessary help.
Absolutely. It's like there's a personal responsibility. We need to take a personal responsibility for our mental health, and we need to get up and do something. But also, when it comes to personal responsibility, maybe we should look around us and see those that are struggling and offer a hand of help to them as well. I conducted an interview with Henny Heymans during lockdown, and he said that he made it a task for each member of his management team to reach out to one of their staff who lived alone every day and make that call. Just make a phone call to somebody who lived alone. And it made such a difference. We're running out of time. I'd like to wrap up with the inspirational questions, but Lanisha, you've got a counselling role. You must have experienced some mental health. And do you have any advice on this topic?
Yeah, so what I've seen, very shortly and briefly, is that social media has also had a big play in mental health issues. And still up till now, social media has it's actually one of the most contributing factors around mental health. I watched this video yesterday while I went on someone's status, and she was speaking about her having she suffers from depression. I also the other day saw, and these are people that are close to me. I also saw the other day someone says that she has ADHD, and I asked, is this clinically diagnosed? And she said yes. But the point is, though, the way in which these issues are presented, it has somewhat also have been glamorized on social media. I have depression and this. And so now we're not anymore seeing the seriousness of this issue, the seriousness of mental health, the seriousness of depression, and the impact it has on people, because it's almost like also how we're glamorizing burnout. I'm so tired, I'm so this, but it is a problem. And so I was so disturbed by the fact, and it's not everyone, but it has been, glamorized in the sense that I suffered from depression, and now you have now, you show this resilience, and you came from depression and everything. But did anybody reach out to us? How did you overcome that depression? Or how did you overcome that anxiety? Did you see a counselor? And therefore, when I see these posts, I have educated myself in this, that I will and reach out. Like I've reached out to this lady and I asked her, was it clinically diagnosed that you have depression or ADHD? And she said yes. And I was like, are you going for counseling? And she said yes. So I think also what a little bit we can do is also to reach out, on these posts and these things on social media about mental health, and really also the advice that Monique and Andila has given, go out, do things that makes you feel better. Like I am an extroverted person. I cannot be in a confined space. I'm gonna go nuts. And I love people, but I also love my own space. That is also the weirdness to me. But I do things that makes me feel at ease. If I know I had too much of my room today, I'm going to go and take my books and study in a different environment. And if I'm tired of that environment, I'm gonna maybe go hiking or do something to just release myself. But honestly, this issue around mental health is so important, and we need to have a honest discussion around this this issue of mental health, because really resources are there, help is there, but why aren't our people getting the help which they need? So that is really an important discussion that we need to have around mental health. Who are these persons that are able to access the services? Are there enough psychologists within South Africa? Are there enough social service professionals that are trained to also deal with these types of issues? Or is it because South Africa or whatever is so overwhelmed with the level of social issues that this important issue or problem or phenomenon is also not being addressed? So yes, really finding a safe space and finding things that makes you happy, and just to release some of those stresses and perplexities that you experience would really also help or facilitate you in how can I say, addressing mental health.
Well, that's the best prelim I've ever had to introduce the Female Forum we're doing in August, which is themed Women in Wellness. So thank you for that intro, Lanisha, and we'd love to see you all there. We're actually on time, so I want to thank you so much, ladies. It's been a fabulous hour and a half, and it's just flown by. If you can just give us one word of who is your inspirational role model. I'm going to thank you now, and then we're going to say goodbye, so not everyone's got somewhere to be. And Dile, your inspirational role model.
It has to be my mom. Like, she takes the cup today.
Monique?
My parents.
Awesome. And Lanisha?
Definitely my mother. She is everything.
Here's to all the moms out there. Well done, everybody. We play a massive, diverse role. Thank you so much for today, and just keep on doing what we're doing.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you to everybody in the audience.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.